Welcome to Big Name Bad Movie, the show where we talk about A-list actors and their worst films. My name is Cameron, and joining me today, as always, is my co-host, Joe.
What's up? We're going to be talking about The Assignment starring Michelle Rodriguez.
Yes.
A landmark film for the transgender community.
Hello, Frank. You can call me the doctor. I'm the one who operated on you. And the reason why is simple. You killed my brother. This operation's your reminder of the terrible thing you did. I've liberated you from the macho prison you've been living in. Good luck, Frank. This is your opportunity for redemption.
Okay, before we get into this, obviously, you know, this movie deals with kind of a touchy subject, to say the least. Just want to get it out of the way, though. Any, like, jokes or laughing that we do throughout this video, it's not meant to be at the expense of the trans community.
Michelle Rodriguez plays a male hitman who wakes up having undergone a forced sex change operation.
Yeah.
Who is now has the appearance of a woman. Mm-hmm. And we'll be referring to Michelle Rodriguez's character, Frank, as a he throughout this entire film, because it's important to note, Frank as a character played by Michelle Rodriguez never identifies as a woman, identifies as a man throughout the entire film.
He doesn't, he goes through the surgery or whatever against his will, but he never chooses to identify with that.
I like to say real quick, this movie is to the trans community, I think, what Soul Man is to the black community.
These are the 80s, man. It's the Cosby decade.
Yeah. It is the Soul Man of the trans community. It is also Matt Walsh's worst nightmare.
Dr. Galen, played by Tony Shalhoub, enters the room and is meeting Dr. Jane at a psych ward. She is a patient at the psych ward. She's in a straitjacket, and she's played by Sigourney Weaver.
Yep.
He introduces himself and says, "Hey, I'm Dr. Galen, and I'm going to refer to you as doctor as a professional courtesy." So the implication
even though your license has been revoked.
Yes, the implication here is she's I guess you said disgraced doctor of some kind.
Yeah.
She was found at a crime scene surrounded by bodies, and her surgical nurse had an empty gun in his hand.
She's like a black market doctor, basically.
Somebody came in and shot up her entire surgical facility, and for some reason she's in a psych ward. I don't know why, because she's not being accused of the murders.
I don't know why she ends up in a psych. Even by the end of the movie, I'm not really sure why she ends up in a psych ward.
It doesn't make any sense. She claims that this was the work of a hitman named Frank Kitchen.
That's why. Because they think that Frank Kitchen is not real and is just somebody that she's created in her head to take the blame off of her surgical assistant.
Yes,
that's what it is.
That's right, because Tony Shalhoub believes that her surgical assistant, who had the gun in his hand, killed everybody in this facility, and that she's just kind of pushing all the blame off onto
He thinks that is bullshit. He thinks both that Frank Kitchen is not real, but also that Sigourney Weaver's character is just saying that, but she's of sound mind.
Yes. Dr. Jane, Sigourney Weaver's character, is going to kind of tell us the plot as a narrator of sorts.
So she starts 3 years prior to that conversation where this hitman, Frank Kitchen, kills her brother because he had some gambling debts.
Yeah,
he was in some gambling debt. He was hired to assassinate him. And right off the bat, I'll say, because in the trailer you don't see Michelle Rodriguez in like male at all, like male presenting or whatever, or masculine presenting. You do in the movie though.
And when the camera pans over and you see Michelle Rodriguez for the first time, I bust out laughing. I was laughing my ass off.
It's so bad.
It's so bad because it looks.
Ironically, it looks like Matt Walsh's little disguise in that new documentary he did. Yeah.
I can't overemphasize how jarring it is to see, because the nose looks like one of those Groucho Marx glasses, like the glasses with a fake nose. And then almost immediately we see Frank shirtless. The movie is trying to show us, hey, we know that you know this is Michelle Rodriguez.
Yeah.
So we're really trying to hammer it home that it's a man. So they have the chest piece on.
Yeah, I thought it was a body double. I thought we were going to do like a Captain America, Steve Rogers pre-transition thing.
They made the creative decision to, I guess, maybe Michelle Rodriguez naturally has very thick eyelashes. Like that could be the case.
I don't know.
But it looked like they had a hint of eyeliner still on Frank's eyes, which is hilarious. The beard looks like Steven Seagal's like painted on tie-dye beard. The most like insane mop of chest hair. It looks like they just glued pubes from here to here.
And even like the body itself is like uncanny valley looking, I feel like.
And I was trying to nail down like why, because Michelle Rodriguez is obviously a slender woman, and I was trying to think, okay, well, they're trying to, with makeup and stuff, kind of bulk her up to play this man, I think, a little bit.
Yeah.
But the other problem is that they have a wig on. And of some kind, or
was it a wig?
I think it was a wig, because I think Michelle Rodriguez had longer hair, and they did a wig with shorter hair, which kind of poofs out a little bit. And there's this weird effect that happens when you wear like a bald cap and then a wig on top of it, where your head looks larger. Yeah. So now this large head on this small woman's body, it kind of looks like a male bobble. It looks like a Steven Seagal bobblehead.
Yeah. It looks terrible.
The first time we see Frank is when he's killing Dr. Jane's brother. The next time we see Frank is about a year later. He's arriving at a motel where he's presumably going to be staying for a little while, because he's going to be meeting his mafia connection named Honest John. So Frank Kitchen walks into
the names in this movie.
Honest John Baconia.
Oh.
They just put an IA after bacon, which I like. Honest John Baconia. Frank walks into this motel and strips down. We see the full chest pubes, everything.
Slinging dong.
He gets in the shower, and is slinging a massive dong walking out of the shower.
Something I feel like they would not do if like the reassignment surgery were not the thing, like the topic of this movie.
No, this is totally pointless. We're just showing, hey, Frank does not have a vagina. Like, that's the whole point of this, is like, we need you to know now Frank has a dong. So then Honest John comes into the motel with his henchman of Asian descent and drops a couple Asian racial slurs right off the bat. He's a mafia guy.
Yeah.
He comes in with his Brooklyn accent. He's like, hey, Frank, I got a job for you. I'll give you 25 grand.
Yeah.
Drops a couple racial slurs, throws Frank 25K.
Hey, listen. Don't talk about Honest John that way, okay? It's anti-Italian discrimination.
Anti-Italian discrimination.
What Frank doesn't know is that Sigourney Weaver's character has hired Honest John to set him up to, I guess, get sex change surgery.
You're getting transed. Bob, you've been transed. So Frank is like just chilling for a week. So Frank decides to go to a bar and blow off some steam. So Frank kind of saunters into this bar and meets a girl. She's a cute little blonde girl at the jukebox named Johnny.
Yeah.
And Frank is like, hey.
Do they even say anything to each other? I think they just look at each other and then go back to his hotel room.
I think they go in like some sort of like, they're hanging out at the bar for a little bit or something.
Okay.
And then they go back to Frank's motel room. Johnny, who's she had a small role in Magic Mike, which I thought was funny.
I've never seen her in anything.
Bro, I love Magic Mike. She had a small role in Magic Mike. It was good to see her. Caitlin Gerard, she's a good actress.
She's working. We love that for her.
We do. And they go back to the motel, and we have the craziest sex scene I have ever seen on camera in any movie I have ever seen ever. There is no way to overemphasize how awkward this is.
Yeah. Again, I feel like it's hammering home this sense of masculinity that Frank feels, which like maybe that's to the movie's credit or not. Like he has this like masculine.
He's a ladies' man.
Yeah, he's got this like masculine presentation where he's just like a macho guy, a freak in the sheets, if you will.
So to paint the picture of what the sex scene actually looks like, Frank is standing there, kind of pushes Johnny on the bed, pulls out a condom, rips it with his teeth.
Because he has a dick, remember?
Yeah, we've seen the dick. Takes the condom, rips it with his teeth, and like goes and like blows the wrapper, and then kind of like stares down Johnny like it's about to go down. I'm like, dude. After this weird sex scene, Honest John comes back to the motel with the henchman again, catches Frank off guard, beats Frank senseless, and at this point in the movie, we don't know why, beats Frank senseless, kidnaps him, and the screen goes dark. Frank is knocked unconscious.
Yep.
We then see glimpses of an operating table. Beep, beep, beep.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like we see photos of Frank kind of hanging up. Someone is doing a surgery on Frank.
Mm-hmm. And then he wakes up in a motel.
A different motel.
Town. Yeah. And, he walks up to the to the mirror and is like, my fake beard is gone, my fake nose is gone. I have a
It's nuts because when Frank takes off the gauze and has this realization, there's just this moment where he just goes, "No!"
Oh my God. Which, you know, all like subject matter aside, I don't know what I would react like if I woke up, in a different body, essentially.
This is the future that liberals want, Cameron.
And your son comes back with a brutal operation.
They really want to hammer home the same way they beat it over your head earlier that Frank has a penis and is a man who sleeps with women.
Mm-hmm.
They now want to beat it over your head that Frank has received the genitalia of a woman.
Yeah, and boobs, of course.
And
very,
breasts.
very many like shots like that. This is, we'll save this for the Patreon, but you know, they really hammer home like this is a different body.
Yep.
Than what Frank had however long ago. I will say Sigourney Weaver is the best surgeon in existence. There are no like surgical scars, anything like that. Nothing. Yeah.
And presumably this surgery would take Frank hasn't been asleep for months. This is like probably a few days after the surgery.
Maybe even the same day.
We see Michelle Rodriguez full frontal and she is just bushed out. And
this episode's getting like, I don't know,
who cares, man?
So hard.
Dude, we're pushing like 100 subscribers now.
Hey,
almost,
we're on the come up. It's all good.
We're on the come up.
Yeah.
She's full bushed out, and I like to imagine because presumably to perform this operation, you would have to. I don't know if you know this. When you perform any sort of surgery, you have to shave the site. I like to imagine they shaved Frank for the surgery and then just glued the chest pubes back on the crotch to form a bush.
Yeah, that literally is the only realistic possibility.
Someone failed biology class.
They just put some minoxidil on it, like some like the oil, they dripped a little bit on there.
This episode's sponsored by Hims.
Yeah. Exactly.
The motel manager comes in and sees Frank there, kind of scantily clad, wearing a robe, and is just being generically creepy. Like, sorry, I heard a noise in here. How you doing, dollface? Thinks that Frank's a hooker for some reason.
Right. I guess it's like a seedy motel, so I guess you could believe that. Maybe.
Yeah, it's kind of the normal clientele. Frank sees a bra next to the bed, perfectly laid out for him, as well as feminine clothing, and then finds a box.
Yeah.
Opens up the box.
It's
Dr. Jane, Sigourney Weaver's character, has left.
Yeah, it's HRT, basically, right?
Yes.
Isn't that what? Yeah.
Yes.
And he, of course, like very passionately, throws it.
Throws the hormones across the room. I ain't no damn woman.
Which, he's not, to be fair.
Yeah,
he's not. I'll give him that.
No. But there's also an audio recording in there from Dr. Jane that says, Frank, you've just woken up in your new body. You were too masculine. You were too much of a man, which is why you killed my brother. Here's a picture of my brother I've left in the box. Now you got to live life as a woman. This is the first big fumble of the movie in my book. Because Frank, I thought this movie potentially had the reality of going in a slightly different direction. And I was like, okay, this could be kind of interesting, which is that Frank is a douchebag.
You pulled a me of like wanting it to be more interesting than it is. But go ahead.
Yeah, no, I did, because I also at first I did like the style of this movie. The premise is obviously garbage.
Sure,
the style was intriguing, and I thought it was gonna be that Frank is like a douche who's like a womanizer and abuses women, and now has to live life as a woman.
Yeah.
Or appearing as a woman and has to face
but we don't get that characterization at all.
Frank's our hero.
Yeah.
And
we don't get really any characterization other than he just is a hitman who's stoic. Like, there's nothing prior to this to set that up. Because, to your point, it's like if you're going to take something like this that, like, involves a sex change, like, that's a very, like, I guess, serious thing to handle. But if you don't, like, give us any, like, character thing, or you, like, are just trying to make a dumb action movie while dealing with a very sensitive subject matter, it just falls flat. But sorry, that may be completely different than what you were going to say.
No,
I
that's
just totally steamrolled you. But
that's a much better way of saying what I was thinking. So,
okay.
Yes.
All right.
The audio recording explains Dr. Jane's plan for revenge on Frank is simply to now hopefully be more docile, because Frank now has to live as a woman.
Because he's low T.
You're
He's a
you're
low
a,
T
you're
male.
now a beta male.
Literally, that is what.
I wish the recording. I wish when he pulled out the audio recording, it just said, "You've been trans."
Whop!
Wow, you've been trans.
Honest, you hear Honest John in the background. Bop!
Boy, you've been trans. So Frank is having a little bit of a meltdown here, and it's clear at this point that the mission of the movie is Frank is going to have to extract revenge on Dr. Jane for giving him a forced. I can't believe I'm saying these words out loud.
Yeah.
For giving him a forced sex change operation. So Frank, still dressed in only a robe, goes downstairs, sees the motel manager is not behind the desk, steals some cash, and decides that he's going to leave the hotel. The seedy hotel manager walks in, catches Frank, tries to sexually assault him, which just feels icky. And then Frank beats the ever-loving shit out of the motel manager, which was kind of satisfying to watch him get beat up. And can I just make one positive note?
Go ahead.
Michelle Rodriguez is a killer action star in terms of choreography. She's great with combat.
Yeah, I will give her that. I think this is a terrible performance overall, but I think you're right. She's a born action star for sure.
Frank beats up the motel manager and then like hops on a bus and goes to a payphone and is like, I need to figure out a place to stay because the people that kidnapped me know where this motel is, and maybe they're gonna try to come kill me or something. And so who does Frank call?
The girl that he had a one-night stand with and barely knows.
I literally wrote in my notes, all caps, the hookup he barely knows.
Yeah, I put the same thing in my notes. I'm like, they barely know each other, and you're just like, not to mention like you barely know her, and like you're like expecting her to like take you in, but it's also like you're trauma dumping like what you're going through on this random girl.
Frank asks Johnny like, hey, I've run into some trouble. Some guys are after me. They want to come kill me. Can I shack up at your apartment for a while and lay low?
Yep.
And Johnny's just like, yeah, dude, I've met one time. Like, come live with me.
Yeah. Which is like, that's kind until later.
And then the line, you had this in your notes too, but the line, because Frank offers to pay for the apartment, and the line that Johnny drops is, I'm not going to take your money. We're friends. And buddies.
God,
it's just the
so
worst,
weird.
The worst dialogue.
Yeah.
We're intercutting between Dr. Jane 18 months later and then Frank Kitchen in the past. And this is where the narrator switches over. And so Frank is at a new hotel, whips out his phone and starts recording a video diary for very weird reasons. He's like, I'm sending this video to my lawyer. Maybe I just need to confess my sins.
This is a therapy session for me.
This is just like therapy. I'm going to sit here and talk to the camera and narrate everything that I'm doing.
Yeah.
So Frank is telling his own story. And this is where we get the best performance and dialogue of the entire movie.
Yeah, I feel like the accent is stronger
in the video diaries.
than anywhere else.
Suddenly, Michelle Rodriguez decides to put on like a bad Tony Soprano impression.
Yeah.
And ends up sounding exactly like Prison Mike from The Office.
The belle of the ball.
One of the first lines we hear from Frank Kitchen to his video diary is he points a gun awkwardly at the camera.
Oh my God.
As if he's like a gangster flexing on Instagram, like points the gun awkwardly at the camera and says,
if there was anything left of Frank Kitchen, it was this point blank aim. And I couldn't wait to use it.
The Dementors.
It'd be one thing if like Frank Kitchen was saying this to like a bad guy or whatever,
but he's alone in a hotel room.
Yeah, just like in front of a fucking laptop camera. Like, what are we doing?
Frank finds a list of people on Honest John's payroll, and he's like, "I'm hunting down Honest John."
That sounds like, sorry, the way you said that was like he was searching Angie's list. It's Honest John's.
She finds a list of people on Honest John's payroll to kill so that she can get revenge and hopefully work her way to killing Honest John and then eventually Dr. Jane. So I want to just point out one of the weirdest details of this movie is the way that they transition between scenes with this awkward cartoon freeze frame effect. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, no, they do like these like still shots that turn into like a cell shaded like comic. It looks like a graphic novel.
Yeah, it would
almost.
work for Scott Pilgrim,
Kick Ass.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
Watchmen, something like
Sky
that.
High, Disney Channel, or
Classic
Disney movie.
Yeah.
But not for this. And the execution on these illustrations is so poor that it's like, I think it looks like they took fan art of like the assignment and
yeah,
we're like,
all the fan art for the assignment.
I think Matt Walsh did the illustrations. Then we cut to, there's a sequence of Frank killing a bunch of Honest John's henchmen and associates. So just going from house to house, just blowing them away.
Montage, but it's not like, again, this is like an action movie, but we don't see any of the action. It's just like that one montage where we're just walking up, boom, boom. Like the action is like, it feels like such an afterthought, even though it also seems like that's the main thing this movie wants to be. It's so like off
Disjointed.
balance.
Yeah. It's very weird because then we go from this very heightened, like action-packed momentum of him going and killing all these henchmen to just buying a dog.
Yeah, okay, so the buying the dog thing, I put this in my notes because I was confused about it. So he's like on the trail of finding Honest John to like figure out who the doctor was to get revenge. And like, I guess, is there like a one of the Honest John's guys that Frank kills that has a dog? Like what was that about?
That's not established in the film. I think
Okay.
genuinely Frank just takes a break to buy a puppy.
Okay, that's so much worse than I thought it was.
I'm pretty positive
because spoiler alert, 3 scenes later he gets rid of the dog. Like what are we like what?
I think it's just a weird like trying to humanize Frank moment because
I guess
Frank and his video diaries.
It's so artificial.
Frank looks into the camera and says, "A dog is the only thing I ever trusted. A dog is the only thing I ever trusted."
Yeah, over here, come on.
Come on.
I love that dog.
I love dogs.
It's
Dogs
like,
are the
okay,
best.
I mean, I guess, but why even have the dog if you're just gonna get rid of it? Anyway,
I have
we can move on.
no idea.
Yeah.
And then the momentum just completely comes to a standstill when Frank comes back to the apartment and sees Johnny there, and they are like about to have sex. And so Frank is like, "I don't know how much I'm going to be able to do, but like we can try."
Yeah.
And so they go into the bedroom, and then we kind of see the afterwards where they're like,
we don't see the dramatic sex scene that we saw at the beginning.
and then the next scene, Frank is going to a surgeon's office, and the surgeon's like, "So wait, how did you get sex change operation?" And Frank's like, "I lied to some people." Like Frank doesn't want to say it was performed against my will.
This could have been like 2 seconds long. Literally, like, you know, in a way to like make this translate a little bit better. It's like, yeah, you see Frank's reaction, and then we cut to him in the room with the surgeon. But instead, it's like we see him walking up to the front desk, explaining that he's like wants to talk to a surgeon specifically. It's like we don't need any of this. We just need him to understand. Essentially, that the surgery is irreversible. That's what the surgeon tells
That's
him.
what the exposition of the scene should be. But
Yeah.
instead, Frank is only asking the surgeon sex-related questions, including looking down at his new genitalia and saying,
Can I get off with whatever this is?
so Frank goes to Honest John's headquarters, kills all the henchmen, ends up kidnapping Honest John, taking him down to the basement, and interrogating him.
Yeah.
Break down this scene a little bit. You got
I mean, he's just tied up trying to get this information out of him of like where the surgeon is. He wants to know the identity of the surgeon. And he doesn't really give Frank Kitchen any of that information, but he sort of alludes to the fact that Johnny is involved in some way. And Frank's like, what the hell? And one of my favorite quotes, one of my many favorite quotes in the movie is, because, you know, again, they try to make this like a dumb action movie, but they have Honest John saying, nurses, they work for doctors, or something like that. Nurses work for doctors. And then Frank pauses for a really long time, walks like to right in front of him and goes,
Can I get off?
yeah, you're right. They do. And then shoots him. It's like, that is not maybe they cut something out there. No, it's like, that doesn't feel like the response to that.
The dialogue is consistently that bad.
Yeah.
At this point, Frank realizes Johnny might be in on the thing. Johnny might have set me up. And so Frank goes back to the apartment, pours a drink, and is waiting for Johnny to come home. Johnny comes home, and Frank's like, sit down. We got to talk. And so Johnny comes over, sits down, and Frank's like, I know you transed me. Like, I know you set me up, Toots.
Yeah.
And And Johnny's like, I had to, otherwise they were gonna break my arms and legs. Like I had no choice. He's like, listen, Toots, I'm putting you on a bus to Reno. You're gonna hide out for a couple of weeks while I kill the surgeon that harmed me. And so just ships off Johnny with no, I guess because Frank
I
loves
think that's
Johnny.
the last we see of Johnny. I thought maybe
That's
she would
it.
like play into it in some way the rest of the movie. Nope, she's gone. She's gone.
So Frank finds out from Johnny that one of the surgical assistants that works for Dr. Jane is really into hookers. And so Frank decides he's going to dress like a hooker and show up at Dr. Jane's front door to infiltrate the base.
Yep. So I guess Frank had Johnny call them as in like, I'm sending a hooker over or something like that. And they're like, you think we'd believe that shit from Johnny, that dumb broad, I think everybody has like a Brooklyn accent, even though this takes place in Oakland. But anyway, maybe I'm just remembering it back like that. I don't know. But so they immediately tie Frank Kitchen up and put him in a straitjacket.
Yeah, and so Frank's now in like a lonely white cell, and Dr. Jane comes in and is like, "Oh, Frank, your surgery went swimmingly. Like you look so good." And Dr. Jane is being all like evil villainy, and is like, "Frank, you look like a girl next door. You look like a homely little girl." And Frank's like, "Grr."
Am I crazy, or did they like do something with Sigourney Weaver's character? Because it feels like she's wearing like these pantsuits and like ties and stuff.
like she's dressed very androgynous.
Yeah, she's dressed like sort of masculine, like has like short hair. Like, were they trying to do something there, or is that just a completely like a detail that they didn't even think about?
I think it's trying to maybe communicate that Dr. Jane has like progressive views on gender, because she pontificates a lot about how she feels like her black market sex change operations are serving an underserved population. She's doing a good for the world. And in this scene with Frank, she explains that her motivation for sex changing Frank against his will was she wanted to have an experiment, and she wanted to prove that even if you change someone's biology and if you change their genitalia and their physical appearance, you can't change their gender identity, because it's an essence of who we are as a person.
Yeah.
And I think this might be the point at which the movie is like, hey,
I'm telling you,
we're not transphobic.
Exactly. They preemptively try to beat those allegations, but it's like that experiment, like that study has been done. That exists. Like, you don't have to do it on your black market thing, like to prove it.
This science is there.
Yeah, yeah.
And instead, Sigourney Weaver's like, nah, we're chopping off dicks.
Yeah.
We're doing it.
Come on.
Come on. Frank's in there with all the henchmen. They're like, we're going to drug you. We're going to, whatever. And Frank decides to distract all the henchmen with his tits. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, you like these? Get a look at these bazoingas. And Frank, come on. And Frank, it's so bad. Frank distracts the men enough with his tits to get to his hidden gun and then shoot all the guys and then track down Albert, the surgical assistant, kill him. And so now it's just Frank and Dr. Jane. Frank goes into Dr. Jane's office, but he's out of bullets. And so Dr. Jane comes in holding a knife and is like, Frank, I've done a service to the world. I'm a good person. Gives her kind of evil villain speech. And Frank is just like, I always have a contingency or something. It pulls out a hidden final bullet that Frank has stashed away.
Yeah. You never know when you're going to need another one of these.
You never know.
You don't even need that line. Just like show the image of like the bullet that's lodged in his boot. And like, just get it out. Like, we don't need any line. We don't need these stupid lines.
No, it's so corny too. So Frank puts the bullet in the gun, and then the final bullet shoots Dr. Jane in a way that doesn't kill her.
Yeah.
Lays her on the operating table, and then stages the crime scene to make it look like the surgical assistant has committed all these murders.
Yeah.
And
which like comes out of nowhere. Like, why wouldn't you maybe frame Sigourney Weaver? Like, I don't know why. Yeah, this whole like framing thing even happened. I don't know. It's just
why
weird.
not just kill her?
Yeah,
you've
already killed all of these people. Yeah.
What's the revenge that you're getting?
Well, we see that at the end, but we'll get to that.
So we cut back to Sigourney Weaver now in present day. She's in the psych ward because everybody believes that she's made up Frank Kitchen and that it's a figment of her imagination. So I guess the punishment for Sigourney Weaver is that she's just in a mental institution instead of being dead.
Yeah.
But it seems like a fairly innocuous, normal institution. It doesn't seem like
Yeah,
it
they don't do
sense.
anything to like show her being like, I don't know,
Tormented.
like for instance, how we see in The Penguin when we see Sophia in Arkham Asylum. You know, we don't see anything like that in this movie. They don't give any thought to it. It's just like these normal looking rooms that she's in a straitjacket in.
Yep. And then Dr. Jane is like in the bathtub, and like the final shot is she like raises her hands out of the tub, and you realize that all of her fingers have been cut off.
Yeah.
She can no longer perform surgery because
Right.
Frank has taken off her fingers.
So that is the revenge, and that's the last shot of the movie.
Yep. And then I want to say
There are a couple of things about the credits that I want to talk about. But go ahead.
fantastic things about the credits. The first is the final line of the movie is, "I used to be a guy, a real bad guy." This is Frank speaking. "Then things changed. Now I look at the cards I got dealt in a different way. One thing's for sure, change is gonna come." You're getting transed.
And then that song, I don't know if we'll be able to play it on YouTube, but the I was a boy.
I was a boy.
They
Play that song multiple times.
They
in the
play it
movie.
all throughout the film. They play this like weird emo pop punk song.
Yes. I really love the fact that they like show the cast and they like bill Michelle Rodriguez twice, even though it's the same name, Frank Kitchen. They don't like, he doesn't change his name or his identity at all through the movie. Like obviously he looks different after the surgery or whatever, but it's like the notion that we as the audience are stupid enough not to know that Michelle Rodriguez is playing both of these roles.
I interpreted that as a little tongue in cheek, like, hey, Michelle's got range kind of thing. And
Yeah.
either way, it completely flops. It's
Yeah.
just like,
This is not Ewan McGregor in season 3 of Fargo, okay, where he plays twin brothers. Like this
distinctly-
is not what this is. So I have in my notes, they end the outro credit sequence with a quote from Frank Kitchen, parentheses, not a real person.
a 45 always tells the truth. You can use it for good or bad, but a 45 never lies. Frank Kitchen.
Frank Kitchen.
You've been trans. That is The Assignment starring Michelle Rodriguez. Oh my God.
Great. Just a great film.
I gave you a new chance in life, and you wasted it.
If there was anything left of Frank Kitchen, it was his point-blank aim. Can I get off?
Okay, so hopefully now you can see why this movie is so overtly tone deaf. It mishandles trans issues. But beyond that, I think maybe the biggest sin of this movie is just that it says nothing.
Yeah.
Like there's no theme, there's no statement, there's no thesis, there's no like, the film doesn't have a perspective. It says
Yeah.
nothing.
And you can do that with like a dumb action movie, but the problem is it's not an exciting action movie in any way. Like it fails on every level. Like you said, I don't think they're trying to say anything, which, you know, that's fine if you want to have like a dumb action movie or whatever, but I can't remember one memorable scene that was not like a corny thing of Michelle Rodriguez feeling her tits. You know what I mean?
There's so much full frontal for no reason, and there's not enough violence.
No, there's not. Yeah.
There's just really, and there's also no, like, we glossed over this a lot in the plot breakdown, but it's worth noting that Sigourney Weaver's character, Dr. Jane, we're cutting back to her a lot in this movie. We didn't discuss that in the plot breakdown because honestly, nothing really happens with her, but her interviews at the mental institution, the dialogue is so poorly written, and they do like the worst thing that movies do when they try to show that a character's smart, right? Mm-hmm. They just give them wordy, complex dialogue.
Yes. So towards the end of the movie, when, you know, Tony Shalhoub and Sigourney Weaver are having their back and forth, she has this long monologue that, like you said, is very poorly written and very, like, I think Sigourney Weaver's phoning in on this one. I think she's a great actress. This is not her best performance. But she says, "Good night, room. Good night, moon. Go f*** yourself, Ralph." It just made me laugh so hard. I like replayed it 3 times. It's like, what are you trying to do? You're trying to do this like poetic, like quasi deep action movie. And it's just like, dude, no. This is not it. Feels like it was written by a Reddit user, like your average, just like thinks they're really smart.
Yes.
You know, and just like quoting Shakespeare. You don't know Shakespeare, doctor? Come on. What are we doing here? You know?
Womeo. You're dumb. Go yourself.
Good night, Moon.
I want to talk about critical reception. This movie's obviously dealing with hot button issues, and I said earlier in the episode, and I kind of alluded to this, it doesn't necessarily feel like this movie is transphobic in the way that like overtly transphobic media would be like, what is a woman?
It's not like that new J.K. Rowling book that she did where it's like some guy fakes being trans to like murder women or whatever. It's not like a trans panic thing, but it ends up kind of being that because of like the whole like sex change against your will thing. It ends up being that, but I don't think it meant to be that.
It's clear this movie is not intentionally a trans panic movie, and it's clear the intention of this movie, as tone deaf as it is, the intention of this movie seems to be in the right place. And I mean, I don't think you attach Sigourney Weaver and Michelle Rodriguez and these bankable big stars to a film from a pedigreed producer that's simply like low bar, like bigoted trash. It's more like a movie that vastly and aggressively misses the mark.
Yeah, very much.
So let's talk Michelle. What you got?
Yeah. So like she responded in an interview. She referred to the movie with its original title, Tomboy, which is definitely like a worse title. I'm glad.
Then The Assignment?
You think that's a better title?
Oh, I mean, Tomboy is bad and The Assignment's bad, but The Assignment, gender reassignment, it's so on the nose.
You're right. They're both bad. To be fair, they're both bad. I feel like The Assignment is more ambiguous.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know. I mean, once you see the movie, yes, that is like very tasteless. So she said in an interview, calling it by its original title, Tomboy, Rodriguez said in a post on Instagram that she was glad she took the plunge. She added, the industry seems to be running low on edgy creativity and real take a chance controversy. Sometimes it makes me want to scream. Instead, I did what I always do when I'm bored with the status quo. I shot crazy I think that's a typo, but I shot crazy B-movie indie to express my frustration. And I want to talk about the irony of that quote because she's talking about being like frustrated with the status quo of the film industry. You're in the Fast and Furious movies.
You're in literally the most blockbuster tentpole productions that Hollywood is churning out right now, which are movies that I do love. I will say
they're fun in their own right, sure,
but they are the absolute pinnacle of mainstream.
Yes, exactly. Like those and Marvel movies are like the most high budget like schlock out there. You know? So I just find that a little
ironic.
Yeah.
I think that's quite funny that she's deeming this movie edgy because nothing other than the log line of this movie is edgy. Like the actual content of the film, beyond the premise, it doesn't push any boundary other than bonk, you've been transed.
Exactly.
That's it. That's the edgiest part of the movie.
The edginess of it is the premise, but they don't really do anything even like remote. Like it's not like one side or the other. It's just like it's there. It's not edgy by definition, you know?
Yeah. It's 33% on Rotten Tomatoes. In terms of our impressions of this movie, would you say it's so bad it's good? Would you say it's a dumpster fire, or would you say it's a hidden gem?
Definitely a dumpster fire.
Really? I'm going to go so bad it's good.
You know, okay.
You got to stand on business.
No, I know.
Stand on business.
I'm not changing my thing. I can see why you would say that, but I just think like it's just not exciting enough to me to like, obviously like we can make fun of it for sure. And like Michelle Rodriguez's performance alone is like fun to laugh at. But to me, it doesn't like put it to a point where I'm like, oh, you gotta see this movie, dude. It's so
I don't know, man. I laughed my ass off at this movie. I mean, I was sitting there with my wife watching it and we kept looking at each other going, no, what the hell? I think it was a good movie experience to watch with someone. I think if I had to sit, you were probably watching this one solo.
I did, yeah.
Yeah, I think if I was sitting and watching it alone, it'd be a little bit less enjoyable. This is definitely a so bad it's good movie for me.
Man, you're kind of swaying me because when I think back, even by myself, I was by myself. I see Michelle Rodriguez in the prosthetics. I did laugh. I was taken aback in the best way.
The scene where she has the dog, she adopts a dog, and then 3 scenes later just gives it to a guy and is like, watch this dog. I may not ever come back. Like gives the dog up for adoption. Like all of these details were hilarious. I think this movie is absolutely so bad it's good.
That's fair. That's fair. I'm honestly, like you said, I'm trying to stand on business, but I do see where you're coming from.
Yeah, this was a fun one to talk about.
Yeah.
If you guys want to weigh in on the next movie we talk about, go to patreon.com/bignamebadmovie. We're dropping tons of really, really awesome bonus content, extended episodes, exclusive minisodes, behind the scenes content, some written content, like basically everything you could ever want if you're wanting to continue this conversation.
Hopefully by the time this goes up, there's already an extended version of, or not an extended version, but just stuff that we left on the cutting room floor of last week's episode. There's also a bonus little episode about Slipstream, which is another movie starring Mark Hamill. Go over there, get in on the ground floor, you know?
And if you want to hear about like movies we're currently watching and really excited about, we'll be doing some discussions on that too. We're going to be talking all things movies. So go check out the Patreon. And if you haven't, like, share, subscribe on this video. It means a lot to us and it makes a big difference. If you're listening to the audio, give us a 5-star review. You've been transed! Bop!